No, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. Hey, look,
You're live.
We are live finally. Sorry about the delay, everybody. We have had some technical difficulties. My computer seemed to crash, so I had to go to my backup computer. I hope this is working well. Welcome to Weekly Talking Politics with Larry Schweikert. We have taken a few weeks off here to regroup after the election, which thankfully went the right way, at least for those of us hosting this show. I'm here with Stuart Turley, the man with the plan for these podcasting efforts, and of course, America's history teacher, Larry Schweikert, author of a series of best-selling books, the latest of which is A Patriot's History of Globalism, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, yeah. And you guys need to go buy Larry's books. They're wonderful books. Larry, tell everybody where they can find you before we go into the agenda today.
Sure. I'm at the Wild World of History, and there we have curriculum for high school teachers of all sorts, homeschoolers, but also regular high school teachers. I teach all of Patriots' history of the United States in video. And then we have a site, if you want more politics, called the Wild World of Politics, where I do a political commentary 3 days a week. And we have all sorts of ongoing videos. My latest one is Integrity with Billy Graham. The previous one was Integrity with Winston Churchill. We did 23 episodes of that. And now we're doing Integrity with Billy Graham. So it's just ongoing. I probably have 50 hours of video lessons in both Wild World of Politics and Wild World of History.
I'm guessing you won't be doing any episodes called Integrity with Joe Biden.
Well, you know, so today, of course, the news is that he pardoned Hunter Biden. Shocked, I tell you. Shocked. Yeah. Who could have ever predicted that?
Nobody could have seen that coming.
And so the hoax news media is going after the Republicans because they're going after Biden for this rather than going after Biden for pardoning his crackhead son, you know? So can't make this up.
But Larry, honestly, they have in that he has a whole 10-year, and I don't think I've ever seen a pardon written this way. 10 years for anything that he may have thought about doing bad or even breathed in bad air. How do you get that?
Practice. Lots of practice. You practice writing these things for other thugs in your administration, and then you apply all of them. You say, okay, just cut and paste all those and put them in for Hunter.
But isn't it really tied to the fact that 2014 was when Hunter Biden relocated to Ukraine, when his father was the Barack Obama's point man for Ukraine policy and selling influence out of the vice president's office. Let's be honest about this. And it was 2014 when Hunter Biden, with zero qualifications whatsoever for the job, was given $1 million a year position on the board of directors at Burisma, a natural gas company based in Ukraine. And all of this corruption throughout our government has stemmed from that date. And so that's why I think this blanket pardon, we got to be clear, it's not just a pardon for things he's been formally accused of by the Justice Department. It's a blanket pardon for anything he's done or may have done during that 10-year period since he relocated to Ukraine.
Yeah, it includes that he's pardoned from bad karaoke trying to sing Born to Be Wild.
It's really one of the biggest outrages in American history, I think, when you really
it's not fair. It's not fair to say he was totally unqualified. I mean, after all, he has more qualifications for that job than Pete Buttigieg does for his job.
Well, that's true. That's a true story. At least Hunter Biden is a lawyer and could theoretically provide legal counsel to the rest of the board of directors at Burisma.
And he has firsthand experience with drugs. So there you go.
Well, he's definitely got that. Anyway, so that was the big event for today before we went live. 15 minutes late, thanks to my computer crashing. But anyway, here we are. We're going to go through an agenda here. We're going to recap the election. Larry's got a lot of insights on the changing demographics in the American electorate, what was a big shift in voter sentiment all across the country from blue to red. And I think let's start, Larry, with just how significant a victory was this. The margin was fairly narrow in the popular vote, but you nailed it on the electoral vote, I think. Your projection was exactly what the outcome turned out to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, I said 312 electoral votes back in June. And I also said that Trump would win the popular vote. I didn't give a number till October. And then I said by 1.5. As of now, he's at 1.6, but they're still counting in California. Who knows? So it'll probably end up being 1.5. I said the Republicans would hold the House. They did. I thought they'd get maybe 3 or 4 more seats, but in California, the Democrats managed to steal 2 or 3 seats through late counting. By the way, it is a myth that the Republicans never win a late counted seat. There was a Mississippi Supreme Court seat that flipped to the Republican in very late counting. So there's something there. And I did say that the Republicans would gain a net of at least 3 in the Senate, and it was a net of 4. And we came very, very close to making a net of 6, and probably within 1 or 2 points of making a net of 8. So the Democrats should be very, very afraid after the results of this election.
So on the Senate, and I know that wasn't on the agenda we wrote up for today, but on the Senate, there's this prevailing conventional wisdom that the Senate will very likely flip back to the Democrats in 2 years. When I look at who's up for re-election in 26, I don't see that happening at all. Do you?
I have not gone through the names. Give me some of the names who are up.
Well, I mean, it's just that the Republicans are, the seats that are up for Republicans are safe in safe states.
Cornyn,
in Texas. I mean, and I'd have to go look at them
McConnell.
Again. Yeah, McConnell's up again. There's one vulnerable seat in North Carolina, as far as I could tell. What's his name? Tom Tillis is very vulnerable because
you mean Mel Tillis.
Yeah, and he's a rhino anyway. He's one of the most disappointing senators I've ever seen in my life.
Well, don't worry about North Carolina, Dave. North Carolina is consistently, especially in the Senate races, underpolled for Republicans. It's the one place where they probably underpoll Republicans more than Trump in North Carolina Senate races. They always have these close, and they're never close at all.
Yeah. And the other seat that, for the Republicans that you think could possibly be vulnerable, although I doubt it, is Rubio's seat in Florida, which is going to have, someone in that seat who was appointed by the governor, has only served 2 years. So theoretically, anyway, if the Democrats could field a strong candidate. But when you really look at the other seats that are up in 26, I mean, these are not vulnerable seats for the Republicans. So I just don't see a flip in the cards, David, there. The House is different.
What I have started doing is on X, this formerly known as Twitter. I have been reaching out to any candidate that is starting to primary out rhinos. I have an open offer for them that I'm creating a podcast series to help them get talking points and create marketing material for them, so that any rhino knows on point. Chelsea Grammer or Lindsey Graham, whatever the heck his name is, he needs to go away. That warmonger son of a gun needs to go. If you're out there and you want airtime on a podcast, I've had 30 million transcripts read on my podcast this year. I've had 1.8 million downloads. I'm not a big podcast, but we got reach. Between David Blackmon, myself, and Larry, we got reach.
Yeah, and so, maybe Ken Paxton in Texas might want to get a hold of you. He's apparently planning to primary Mr. Cornyn. That'd be a big lift. Cornyn, as disappointing as he is pretty strong in Texas and has never had
good old cornhole.
Yeah.
All right. Stu, you need to get Ving Rhames involved in that. We got the reach.
I'll tell you what, I am very pleased with my team being able to get everything done that they have. And considering how badly I am shadow banned by Google, Google doesn't like the truth. And I think it's a testament to my team.
Well, when we're done with this, I want to talk to all three of you guys for a brief moment about an idea I have for a once a month podcast that would involve us and my election night co-host, Seth Keschel, who is deeper into the statistics than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, he was calling these races within the actual vote margin, not just say, well, win by 1%, but he'll say win by 40,000, 50,000. He had those right down. So we need to talk. Here's something that I'm looking at. So you know that from the time we started this, I've been talking about the big shifts. And of course, the biggest shift this time around was the Hispanic shift. So much so that Matt Iglesias and Ruth Teixeira and others are writing specifically about how the Democrats are losing the Hispanics. Now, as a historian, this is one of the great ironies of history, that in the past 30 years, the Democrats have worked their tails off to bring illegal Hispanics into the United States under the assumption they would give the Democrats a permanent majority. And it's turning out to be just the opposite, that Hispanics, Trump got 45%, an all-time high, tying George W. Bush. Right. And chances are, were he to run again, he would get way over 50. Most of these liberal commentators are saying that it was Hispanics that basically flipped all of the swing states to Trump. And so you have this, the first Civil War I've always been talking about is the illegal criminal alien invaders versus the urban blacks, mostly blacks. And that certainly panned out. And we see, I'll talk about this in a second, in New York, how this is really producing major problems. Number two, you had the Palestinians versus the Jews. And that definitely worked against the Democrats in Michigan, which probably cost Harris, Michigan, that Arab vote and the Hispanic vote in Michigan. Yeah. There's a brand new civil war brewing. I hear nobody else talking about it. And that is the techies versus the greens. And that is the Silicon Valley tech guys who are now obsessed with their new toy, AI, and they can't do without it. It's infiltrating everything because they're so enamored with AI, sort of like the Prius was about 10 years ago. Yeah. And this has, as you know, Dave, more than anybody, AI draws more power and energy than Galactus does. Whenever I think of AI, I think of the Fantastic Four comic book and that giant guy with the kind of horns who would eat planets for energy. That is AI. It eats planets for energy. And so the green movement, with its solar, with its wind, with its batteries, has no chance if the techies are going to demand their Galactus level energy. And they will slowly fracture away from the Democrats. They don't want to, but they're going to have to because of the energy needs.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's going to be a pretty consistent problem for the Greens to overcome. And I don't see how they can do it, honestly, because the tech companies are going to get the power regardless, and they're not going to care what the source is. I mean, we've got Amazon keeping coal-fired power plants open 5 years longer up in Nebraska to fund one of their big tech centers. So, that's going to be a long-term issue that we're going to have to deal with. There was a question about Gavin Newsom, about whether he's going to run in 28, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously he's already running. He's convening this session to Trump-proof the California economy today as we're recording this. And so I think he's already basically signaling that he's going to run.
Well, as of today, the Democrats have 4 candidates. One is Gruesome. One is Witless Protection, Gretchen Whitmer up there in Michigan. And
is that the same one that tried to hijack herself with the FBI?
Yes.
Is that the same one?
Yes. The third is Harris, good old Cackles, who announced that she's going to run again, which you go, girl.
Yeah, let's go.
The fourth one is Occasional Cortex, Alexandria Cortez, who just, man, if we could just run her, that would be so awesome. I mean, you're talking basically 400 electoral votes with her out.
I first predicted she would run in 2028 way back in 2019. She is the next Manchurian candidate of the Democratic Party. She's following right along the same process that Barack Obama went on during the aughts, the early years of this
But
century.
it's a vastly different world, David. I mean,
it's a
not
different world,
near the same world as when Obama came in with hope and change. Let's get us out of the wars. Let's all sing Kumbaya, embrace. Right. I've got a very good story for you, though, speaking of Kumbaya. One of my friends, Mark Stein, who was the lead singer and keyboard player of the group Vanilla Fudge in the late 60s.
The Vanilla Fudge, man.
I love Vanilla Fudge. They were so good.
Yeah, they were really good.
Mark Stein and I hooked up when I sent him an email over thanking him for support of the 9/11 rescue dogs. He did a concert to raise money for the 9/11 rescue dogs. I said, that's really great, Mark. I appreciate that. And we started conversing and eventually said, my wife wants me to write my autobiography. Would you help? Well, normally I would charge for that, but this is one of my all-time idols. So I go, yeah, I'd love to help. So we wrote his autobiography and he put me in touch with all sorts of other people around the country, rock and rollers and everybody else. So I totally forgot where we were going with all this. You'd led me to a great story, and now I forgot it.
Well, we were talking about Gavin Newsom running. I'm not sure how we ended up with the Vanilla Fudge, but anyway.
I'll remember it and tell the story.
That's how I live my life, actually.
Now that I've set it up perfectly.
Yeah. So California, though, is a really great story because, as you mentioned, they are still counting votes in California 26 days after Election Day, 27 days after Election Day. And I know the Republicans have filed some lawsuits seeking injunctions on the vote counts in a couple of those California districts. But as I explained to a friend the other day, the problem is you have to file in state court because the states control the vote counts. And all the judges in California are communists, just like the politicians. So you're not going to get good. What can the Republican Party do to fight back against this clear, obvious voter fraud operation that is just institutionalized in California now?
Well, yesterday I was talking with Seth Keshel about this in Arizona because they're still counting in Arizona.
Yeah, they're still counting in Arizona. Yeah.
And the issue is something that Republicans have fought for, which is signature verification. That's what is taking so long, is they're going through and double checking all of these signatures. Well, Florida counts all of their early and mail-in votes first. Before the election day even opens, they're already counted and under seal, which is what caused Steve Bannon's team to absolutely freak out in 2016 when the Florida early vote posted. They go, we're going to lose Florida. I go, no, you're not going to lose Florida. But so one thing would be to change laws so that all of the early mail-in voting, and we would like to do away with mail-in voting, but that's another story, so that all of those are counted before you get to election day. Then all you have to count on election day are the actual precincts that are out.
Right.
The second thing is, if you're going to do signature verification, it's going to take you more than a few days. It's just, there's no way you can verify 5 million signatures or even 2 million signatures in 24 hours.
Yeah, but so here we are. We've got 2 states still counting votes. 48 other states managed to get this done. In Florida, they counted 16 million votes before 10 o'clock that evening. Texas, we counted something like 14 or 15 million before midnight that night. It certainly can be done if you just have the right processes in place. The problem is you got to have a state government that's willing to do that, right? And in California and Arizona, the Democrats are more interested in stealing elections than conducting free and fair elections, it seems to me.
And the answer to that is you've got to win over the fraud, like Trump did, like so many other of these senators did. You've got to beat them, even though they've rigged the game. I mean, there's people who think the Kansas City Chiefs right now are getting a lot of awfully good calls, Well, if you want to beat the Chiefs, you're going to have to beat them and the refs. It's just a fact of life. And once you start doing that, then the Democrats themselves will demand that you change the laws because mail-in voting is racist.
Yeah, if it's not their advantage anymore. Go ahead,
Can
Steve.
I got a question for you, because the Democrats still counting in California. They're probably counting, in my opinion, for trying to weasel away the popular vote. And so they're just getting all these votes in. And I read somewhere that they think that Trump may have gotten a lot more than the 71 million votes. They think he could have gotten 90 million votes because there were so many Dominion voting machines that flipped Trump votes for Biden or for Harris, that I think we've got to fix that issue, because he got a mandate. I believe he got that 90 million.
Well, Trump is at 74 million right now. They're not going to take
But-
the popular vote from him. Even it's not even going to be close. I do believe he should appoint a commission to look into both 2020 and 2024, but we'll see if he does that.
You see where I was going with that is I think he got the 90 million. I think that they had Dominion servers flipping, though. There's enough evidence that when you have Colorado having her codes to the Dominion servers. Are you playing catch with your cat, David?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have
getting to stop doing something over there.
If you have the Colorado head of the voter up there leaving the codes to her Dominion servers open to the internet before the election, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, Stu, the thing that works against suggesting if they flipped millions of votes via Dominion that was going to really change anything is this: overall vote was way down this time, something like 142, 143 million, right? Okay. And while we think 12 million could be accounted for fraud based on where you were in 2020, the fact is there are simply not going to be that many people come out without the COVID protocols. Remember, when we had COVID and everybody was locked down, there was nothing else to do but vote. You know, in July, you were getting ballots and you were stuck in your home, and I might as well fill this thing out and send it in, right? And there have been so many analysts that look at that, the impact of COVID just on turnout and how much greater it increased the turnout in 2020 over 2024, leaving aside fraud.
Okay. So saying 90 million is out.
I don't think that Trump got 90 million. I think he maybe
whatever
got
the number
80
is.
million. Maybe got 80.
Yeah.
I think so. I think whatever the number is, we don't know the actual number.
But Biden did not get any 81 million in 2020. He got closer to 63 million.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's an enormous problem. And I doubt Kamala Harris got many more than that this time. It's an enormous problem that has to be addressed. We've got to fix that to have free and fair elections in this country. And the problem is, you know, I think that as conservatives, we're probably all pretty much in favor of having state control of the elections. That's part of the federal system. It's how the Constitution was set up. So you don't really necessarily want to change that. But when you have these long-term corrupt governments, one-party states like California, New York, Illinois, you have to find some solution to that, some way to resolve that issue to ensure that their elections are conducted in the same way the rest of Americans are. And that becomes a real tough thing to do in the current system.
I think it's possible, David, for the Congress, if we could get one that would do it, to pass a law establishing that on election day, all votes must be counted by midnight that night, and let the states work backward from there. It doesn't do anything to state authority. States can accomplish that any way they want, but they must accomplish it due to the requirements of the Constitution, validating the electors and all the other stuff. Why would that be so hard? But getting a Congress to do it, certainly with only a 2-vote Republican lead in the House and only a 3 or 4 vote lead in the Senate, and 2 of those are not Republicans, 2 of those are dementia
Yeah.
patients.
Right. Exactly.
The,
Yeah.
David, the other graphic I found most amazing was the only states that Kamala won were those that allowed no ID or pictureless IDs. And
She didn't win a
so
single state with real voter ID laws. Not one.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that has got to be something for Doge and Elon. If you're listening to this podcast, you're more than welcome to come on at any time. But also for Doge, I think that ought to be something as well. You got to have something for election integrity on banning the damn machines and voter ID. Those two things I think would help guarantee things.
There's a lot of concern, though, Stu, right now about these new ID requirements to fly. And people are starting to worry about a national ID card that would, in the hands of a Biden administration, prevent you or I or anybody else from ever getting on a plane. They just label us some sort of domestic terrorist, which they
absolutely they do anyway. I mean, look at what they did to Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, they good grief. Here is a woman that I hope is approved to be in charge of our national intelligence agencies. I had my doubts at first about her, but I think she's stepping up. I think it could be great.
Well, speaking of Tulsi, no, I want to do this first. So, we talked about Hispanics and the big voter shift there. The other really significant thing that I saw, Larry, and I wonder what you think about it, is Gen Z and this huge shift among young voters from Democrat to Republican. That is something that if the Republicans can consolidate and appeal to, could have enormous consequences well into the future, right? I mean, these are people 18 to 29 years old who voted in near majorities for Donald Trump.
Well, and there were the main thing there was obviously the economy, lack of opportunity, lack of jobs. These are people with 2-year degrees. And even those who come out with just a regular 4-year college degree, if it's liberal arts, not too many things you're going to be able to do with that. And so what we're seeing is a twofold development. One, colleges are seeing their enrollments fall. They've fallen by about 4% in the last 5 years and appear to be on a continued downward motion. At the same time, women are making up far more percentages of those who do attend college.
Right.
Last I saw, it was about 52% and growing. Men are increasingly saying, I don't want to go to college. They're too feminized, too woke, too crazy. And the financial reward of spending 4 years in college is really not that great. It used to be there was a big gap between high school and college in terms of your lifetime earnings.
Right.
Now the gap is only between higher level degrees, MAs and PhDs, and BAs. That's where the gap is. But even among those, if you've got like me, a PhD in history, you're going to be more limited than if you have a PhD in molecular science or something like that. So, which takes a very long time to get, and a lot of smarts. And people are finding that if you go to work right out of high school or right after 2 years of college, you may have a lot going for you, and it may not matter in the long run, right? So those two things are driving the Gen Z turn to Trump. The males, Trump overwhelmingly won males, I think by 14%.
Yeah.
And this, again, is a response to woke. Most of woke stuff is very feminist, feminized stuff that just drives men away. And as a result, we're seeing many of these companies, at least openly, Walmart's the latest, but also Boeing and some others, closing their DEI departments altogether because it was not flying, to use a pun with Boeing.
Yeah, exactly. So the other, and this will be the last on this particular line. We had all these polls leading up to the election showing Trump getting 20 to 25% of the African American voter, at least black males. And he ends up getting 12, I think it was the final number. He got 12%, which is much better than he did in 2020 or 2016, but still just pales in comparison to 45% of the Hispanic vote. I mean, are we ever going to see a real shift, a real order of magnitude change in the black vote in America from Democrat to Republican?
Well, the numbers I saw were 16, meaning he doubled his 2020
Okay.
number. Second of all, black males, he got 31% according to exit polls. So that's very, very significant. No Republican is going to get a lot of black females because that is the dependent on government vote. There are so many broken black families, so many single black women, single black mothers. They're just not going to be pulled away from what they view as their income source, which is government. So that's going to be a very, very tough nut to crack. But right now, and even the Democrat insiders are admitting this, the Democrats are a U-shaped party. They've got the very, very rich on one side, and they've got the very, very poor on the other, and they're losing everybody in between. And the Republicans, it's an astounding thing that they've done, is they've remade themselves completely into the party of the working class, blue-collar voters, average Americans, middle class, and pulled away from the elites. And when you read the people at National Review or places like that, this is what really irritates them. The Republicans are no longer the sophisticated party, so they can go to their little cocktail parties and appear to be intelligent and reasonable and that they matter, and they don't. You know, people like Max Boot, or Bootless as I call him, David French, or French Fry as I call him, Jonah Goldberg, or Goldberger as I call him. You could make a meal out of these guys.
What about Jennifer Rubin? What's your nickname for her?
Oh, God. Jenny the Ugly Red. I swear, you know.
Yeah, she's the biggest nitwit of them all, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Max Boot might be, because he's written essentially the same weekly column, just changed up a little bit, for like 16 years now at the Washington Post. The guy has a complete one-track mind. He's the biggest war pig in writing today.
Well, all these guys, you could just take a list of conservative principles, and as soon as Trump adopted all those and began to act on all of them, that's when they freaked out and they jumped to the other side. And this was my view of them all along, was they never really were conservatives. What they were doing was serving as the straw man for a conservative position at the cocktail parties. Now, let's go see what Jonah Goldberg has to say about abortion. And then he would put up a faux abortion argument, but he didn't really want anybody to enforce that view. He just wanted to have it so that he could keep attending their parties.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly who those people are.
Diddy parties? Did I hear that?
No.
Oh,
no Diddy parties. No.
Okay, good.
We're not making that accusation.
For the record, I've never been to a P. Diddy party.
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay, cool.
I did drink some Ciroc vodka one time, and then I found out it was Diddy's vodka and stopped doing that. Ratcliffe and Patel at CIA and FBI.
Oh, boy.
And Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. Are we going to get all three of them confirmed, do you think?
I think it will get at least two confirmed, and probably all three. One of the things Trump has done is he has nominated so many good people, great people,
really good people,
and in many ways, such radical people that there's so many out there that I don't think the Senate will be able to muster themselves and focus on one target. They may get one of them, but I don't think they'll get more than one. Then you got Bobby out there, and Biondi, who came in with a not so great endorsement by the real anti-state people, the anti-deep state people. Her first comment out of the box is, we're going to investigate the investigators and prosecute the prosecutors. And all of a sudden these guys go, oh no, who did we let in there? How did that happen?
Well, and the people in the media that have supported all this stuff and brainwashed the public about it, they know they're vulnerable too. Part of how you know someone like Kash Patel is the perfect nominee is the outrage in the mainstream media about the nomination, right? I mean, nobody's outraged about Marco Rubio at Senate or at state. They're outraged about the people who are really going to come in and be aggressive and make a real difference. And so that tells you they're the right people for this particular assignment. I just worry, we've got so many rhinos in the Senate, starting, of course, with Collins and Murkowski and Mitch McConnell, and then you go down the second tier with Cornyn being one of them, and Cassidy from Louisiana. My God, how do they keep sending guys
and
like that?
idiot in Utah, right?
The
latest minion Romney they just stuck in there. Here's what, remember Rush Limbaugh? You could write a book of Rush Limbaugh maxims that would be a great political guidebook. And he used to say, they will tell you who they fear. Obviously, they don't fear Rubio, although I saw Seth Keshel wrote a very good column the other day about why Rubio is probably pretty good at state.
Yeah, he's going to be better than people think, I think.
Number one, he's anti-China. Yeah. Number two, he will probably take orders from Trump. He's probably glad to be there, right? And I wanted to mention this when you're talking about the senators, because this gets into how DeSantis handles that open seat. So there's two ways to go in that open seat. Many people think he will pick somebody who will just be a placeholder in that open seat, and then in 2 years, he will run for the Senate from that seat. The problem with appointing a placeholder is once you're in place, you don't like to, you want to hold it forever, right? Yeah. These people start to see what a great gig it is, and they don't want to give it up. So it might be harder than he thinks to appoint a placeholder. I mean, look at William Howard Taft. After 4 years, Teddy Roosevelt goes, "You're not as progressive as I thought. You need to get out of there." I said, "No, I'm staying here, buddy. I'm president." So the other thing that could happen is DeSantis could put himself in that position. If I was him, that's exactly what I would do, because I would not want to risk a open war with a placeholder in 2 more years. That if the guy does a great job and if he's very, very popular or whatever, who knows, you might not get him out and then you're done. At that point, DeSantis is done.
Do you think DeSantis is ready to give up the governorship for a Senate slot?
Well, he's only got 2 more years, and then he's I think he's term limited out.
Yes. Yeah.
What a great move for him personally.
He has no future outside of Florida in national politics unless he takes that Senate seat.
Right. I think that's right. I agree with that. I don't think he can serve out his term as governor and then go right into a campaign for the presidency without that platform to run from.
Right.
And so being a senator gives him that platform. I totally agree with you. If I was him and I saw myself as a future presidential candidate, I would definitely appoint myself to that job.
Now, there is a third option. And the third option is, if he really wants to be considered for 2028, but not take the Senate job, he would coordinate with Trump to give Trump everything he wants as a person. If it's Laura Trump, fine. I don't know who it is, but whoever Trump wants in that gig, DeSantis could put him in as a quid pro quo for Trump agreeing to stay out of the 2028 race and just let it go forward. He wouldn't endorse DeSantis because, there's J.D. Vance, but he could say, in return for giving me a solid Senate vote that I can count on every time, I will agree to stay out of the race in 28.
Interesting. That would be quite a commitment on his part. What about other nominees? I mean, I feel like the Senate is going to, they already took out Matt Gaetz, which I think was not a wise choice to begin with for a lot of reasons. But I suspect they're going to demand at least one more sacrificial lamb before then the rest of the Republicans will back up and give him everything else. I can't, in looking at the slate of nominees right now, it's hard for me to decide who that's going to be. I mean, when you really look at it, it could even be Robert F. Kennedy, right? Who is a very controversial figure, particularly for the job Trump is nominating him for. And then the other one, of course, is what's his name, the Fox guy that he's
Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Those are the obvious choices, right? I mean, other than the three we've already talked about. I think Ratcliffe is safe. He's in at CIA.
He's already been
Doesn't have
in
a problem.
once, yes.
But they're so afraid of Patel at the FBI. I mean, I just think that he is one they're really going to go after. And so many of those senators, the rhinos, are compromised related to Ukraine and the military industrial complex. I just think it's going to be a big lift to get Patel in that job.
I'll tell you what, I did see Dr. Patel, Kash Patel's dad, put out on X. I don't know how big of a reach he has, but he said, I will call every Patel in the United States to go on strike.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if for a man to put that out there, a doctor, I have a feeling he's got reach.
30% of the motels in the United States of America are run by someone with the last name of Patel.
Wow.
That's a big, fat, hairy deal. That was in the New York or Washington Post last week. 30%.
Yeah, but Dave, if 30% of the brothels in Washington were owned by somebody called Patel, then you'd have leverage. Then those guys would be in real trouble then. Here's the thing. I think probably Hegseth is the most vulnerable, only because his record has the most places to attack him on.
Right.
Patel's record has no place to attack him on. It would just have to be personal animosity.
Right.
Gabbard's lack of experience would open her to some attacks. Bobby Kennedy is both hated by a lot of them, but also feared by a lot of them in terms of he has such incredible reach, and he is a Democrat. And there's just so many things that could go wrong with opposing him. I think he's safe. So in pecking order, I think the one most in trouble would be Hegseth, followed by Patel, followed by Gabbard. However, this is a new Donald Trump. Yeah. This is a Donald Trump who learned from the last time around. And I do believe that this Donald Trump is fully willing now to use the Obama Accords, which is to threaten to dump dirt out the wazoo on these people, to expose them like they've never been exposed before. And I mean to every charge possible, including the Epstein charges, if they oppose his people. And I hope he's getting that word out now saying, you guys, you're not going to do this to me this time. And if you try it, I'm going to absolutely destroy every one of you.
Oh, this is President Trump right here. He's calling in. Yes, sir. You got it? Okay, you heard Larry? Great. Thank you, President Trump. You're on it. Thanks.
MAGA.
Well, he may have to do that, I mean, and the reality is every one of these senators has those vulnerabilities. I can't talk. They're all compromised in some way or fashion. So it's not just a matter of Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski not liking somebody and they're not going to vote for them. They've got all these problems in their personal lives, their professional lives that can be revealed and rolled out at any time. So it's going to be just fascinating process to watch.
Well, my guess is we lose Collins and Murkowski on every single major candidate. The top six, they won't vote for any of the top six. I think the fight is between the guy in Utah. Why do I keep having I
forget his name too.
Curtis. Between Curtis, Yertle, Mitch McConnell, and who was the third one you mentioned a while ago?
Bill Cassidy.
I think Cassidy is more reliable than Cornyn.
Tillis. What about Tillis or Cornyn?
Yeah, Tillis, he's not going to be in the Senate, so that's hard to blackmail him in terms of voters, primarying him or whatnot. Is he up or is he?
He's up in 26. Yeah.
He's up, but he still can run, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
He will face a massive primary if he does.
I think he will, like this. And he should.
So I think that the fight is among those last three, ensuring that those last three, at least two of them, come on board any candidate. And I think whatever you need to, and Yertle has great vulnerabilities now because he said he's going to leave. And if you want to have, you could probably tell him, I will support your named replacement, but you're going to vote for all of these people. That would go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this has been a wonderful discussion.
Oh, New York. We didn't get New York. Let's get in New York real quick. So New York is the latest civil war coming up between the Democrats. And have you noticed that in the campaign, Andrew Cuomo, my nickname for him is Nipple Pin Vent Hoarder. Andrew Cuomo, and he came out in favor of Trump, kind of endorsed Trump without an endorsement, but said Trump was doing all the right things. Then the mayor of New York, Eric the Red Adams, came out and started closing these migrant hotels and said, we're done with all of this. Then Biden indicted him. So now his only hope of getting out of the indictment is President Trump. So he's come out even stronger against the sanctuary city stuff. Strong that a state Democrat had to tried to start passing legislation to fortify the illegal aliens there, which we'll see if that happens. And then just yesterday, Governor Hochulaga, Kathy Hochul, came out and said that the state of New York is going to support ICE on all of this.
Yeah,
so you have this
extraordinary
major shift to New York on the heels of Trump coming within 12 points of winning New York State, probably closer to 11, 5 points of winning New Jersey. They are seeing a shift. And I think that now New York is positioning itself as the not California in the Democrat Party.
Well, that would be a huge thing in and of itself, right? I mean, that would just have tremendous ramifications for the future. That statement by Hochul was really extraordinary and didn't get the attention in the press that it really deserved.
I remembered the Mark Stein story. So after all of that, when Mark Stein was done with his music career of Vanilla Fudge, he went into jingle writing in New York City for major companies. And he ended up in the final two of a jingle for Coca-Cola. And his jingle for Coke was "People like you like Coke." And he lost out to "I'm going to teach the world to sing. It's the real thing." And that was what I was talking about with Kumbaya and everybody holding hands. I knew I'd get back to
it. Well, that's fantastic. Guys, we need to do this more often. I think we need to find a way to keep this deal going, whether it's a monthly or a weekly. And the three of us do need to talk offline about that. But I think folks watching and listening, you'll see this come back one way or another soon. And we will let it known on our social media feeds what we finally decide to do. Stu, I did not think up top to give you the chance to tell everyone where they can find you before we go.
Oh, well, thank you. EnergyNewsBeat.co is my website. We average about 70,000 people a day on the site. Also, the Energy Newsbeat .substack.com. So, and I'm always on X picking on people. So you got to love it.
He's all over the place, folks. You can find me at davidblackman.substack for politics, blackman.substack. For energy, I write about both every day, usually several times every day. And everything I write everywhere else ends up being linked there in one way or another. So that's where you can find me. And with that, we're going to wrap this episode up and decide what we're going to do in the future. And we will